Two, 1, 2. Here we go. It's Monday, a new week. We're into November. Where are the seasonals? A lot of people were looking for, obviously, October to come to fruition, but September was an up month, normally and notoriously a very difficult month for the markets. Looks like a lot of mean reversion happening. I know I've showed you this so many times, and by the way, good call on the TGA Treasury General Account. I thought that they were going to run this thing up to about 850 billion, and here we are right now just sitting under $1 trillion. They're backing off a tiny bit off of the new issuances. You can see over here now just the mere 280 billion dollars over the next couple of days. Well, that was from the 30th. There's nothing on the calendar over here, so they are indeed backing off. And don't forget, or at least from my own personal judgment and perspective, this is all like a headwind for liquidity because it's sucking it out. And the markets during that period have performed pretty well. I mean, I feel very sensitive. Like, listen, we're going to get strongly into Bitcoin today. A lot of people are looking at the distribution taking place, and there is massive distribution taking place, except it's different than past distributions that you've seen. I'm going to get into it with you. We're going to cover it. We're going to make sure that we understand it. A lot of people getting liquidated this morning on the long side. People wondering when are we going to get the bounce on Bitcoin? And look, it completely irresponsible. All these liquidations were on the long side. And right now we know that momentum had rolled over like a while ago. We're actually holding a short on Cardano. Bitcoin's been taking attempts at the short side. There's no reason whatsoever to be playing around with leverage on the long side when momentum is not there. Bitcoin bull runs has been out of the market. CTM, we don't even touch leverage. There's no need for leverage whatsoever, right? The only people that I know that have gotten hurt have, and some people during the great liquidation that happened recently are the ones that they're using leverage. And here's the thing: is that you need to be around for the long term. The only time that I ever could see, and I'm not a proponent of using leverage whatsoever, but the only time I could ever see it is coming off of a massive, massive, massive liquidation. Probably said on the short side. On the you see longs get liquidated like you know like pain. That's the only, but it has got to be capitulation also. You all remember what capitulation looks like on Bitcoin, right? You could come back to December 2017. Sorry, 2018. That was capitulation. March 2020. This is capitulation, right? You can go over here and you say, this is capitulation. An event like that, and again, I'm not a proponent whatsoever. That's the only time I could ever see taking the risk because it's a huge risk and it's scary in those moments because dude, don't forget, like prices just fallen, say 50, 60%. Let's say price went from, to make it easy, 100,000 to 50,000. Price just fell 50%. Well, it's only 50 more percent to go from 50,000 to 25,000. And if you're on leverage, that's going to come in hot and quick and could really hurt. Anyway, all about that. Markets aren't correct. One of the funniest things, I mean, Bitcoin, listen, we're going to strongly get into Bitcoin today. Bitcoin off of its all-time high, which was, roughly 6 weeks ago, is off 16%. People feeling it. I think the main reason people are feeling it is because of what was 4-year cycle expectations. And a lot of people were really looking for like this move into, and specifically into October for the end of the 4-year cycle to see that euphoric move. I think here at CTM, everyone's had expectations that there wasn't going to be, outside of an adoption event, outside of like literally the US being like, okay, we're going to be buying 1 million Bitcoin, that you're not going to see any type of euphoric rise in price. And true to form, we're just seeing actually a subdued price. Price, though, is able to maintain and has been maintaining above $100,000. We'll get into that in 1 second. I want to start off with the low hanging fruit, the easy stuff. A lot of people here, even on equity markets, are feeling like, let's say, I mean, what are we off of over here? Off of the all-time high, which by the way was just last week, we're currently 1% off. And people are like recession 2026, the AI bubble is going to pop. And I really feel that this that's not everyone. There's a large portion of, let's say, market participants who are really embracing this. And again, I just kind of reframe this morning and saying that many people believe, those same people who believe that we're about to actually crash, believe that we're in an AI bubble right now, that this is a bubble. My own feelings are a little bit different, and I think that this is probably best illustrated through the whole Raoul Pal chart over here, where this was a bubble, right? Markets crashed over here without ever going into a bubble. This is the 2008 Great Financial Crisis. So it doesn't mean that you need to go into that euphoric move up in order to have a market crash. More often than not, when you enter into that euphoric move up, you're setting up a gigantic mean reversion, which is going to be a crash. And we continue. We're not, bubble is, I guess, well, whatever. Point I was making, those same people believe that we're in an AI bubble right now, believe it's also going to transform the world. And at the same time, they believe that why it's transforming the world, this is going to be the shortest bull market in duration that we've seen in the last 50 years. It's hard to reconcile. A lot could change. And one of the things that I've pointed out to you very often is that one day, this says sometime soon. If you omit the sometime soon portion from this, this is the sentiment that I've been trying to share with all of you. One of the major events that I watch out for. And sure enough, last week we were watching out for this. And we will next earnings seasons as well. And that will continue. I don't believe it's going to be sometime soon, but one day there is going to be an announcement about a major company abandoning further AI investments due to lack of real returns. And for whatever the reason, that's irrelevant. What's important is that someone pulling back, and that's going to trigger the biggest market meltdown in modern history. That's gonna deliver an enormous scare, a correction, right? Whether is it going to be the biggest? No, the technology is real. Like the technology is real, and the pace at which it is advancing is absolutely hard. We'll get into that in 1 second to make it very clear to you. This is not that, but very close. Today you saw the CEO of Microsoft, and he's like, listen, like, here's the thing is that we have chips that we can't put to use because we don't have the energy for it. Now that's a lot different. Now here's the thing, that the pace of the innovation on these chips, that like something purchased today is obsolete a year from now. You need to continually, you can't like place an order with Nvidia to power a data center today and expect to get them delivered in 2 to 4 weeks. The lag time is significant. So you have to constantly be placing orders. You have to make sure that you're in the pipeline. And then the problem is that you just don't yet have the power. And it looks like, there's definitely massive plays going out there. You see that Google just made a arrangement with an offline nuclear power plant that by, I'm going to say 2008 will be 2028 will be online. It could be, no, it's probably that. And then you're seeing like the US by 2030, I believe, expects to have 10 nuclear power plants online, which is awesome. And maybe that's 2032, which is awesome that the United States is moving in that direction. That's something that, going back to the great financial crisis during that time and before that I remember the case of why we need to use nuclear energy was so strongly made, and then forever, if for whatever reason there was Like Bitcoin is gonna like once it became about the AI race, at that point, obviously powers that be are moving strongly and closely towards it. Now, here's an advantage that I think China has. China's lacking on the technology side, but they're winning on the energy side. And I think that that becomes a factor within this equation at a certain point in time. This is, this is a reality, and at the same time, this doesn't mean that they're spending back on buying of the chips of the semiconductors, not at all. Now that also, but something like that could happen one day. This was a glimpse of how quickly things can change. You see, by the way, Google, like Meta, just last week or the week before, they're now going into the debt markets to raise money to fund these data centers. Now, Alphabet is also doing the same. Now, this is, and by the way, the number, I thought I had the number up over here. I don't have, it was, ah, Meta just raised 30 billion. I don't know how much Alphabet is raising here. If anyone knows, please put it into the comments. This is a significant amount of money, and it's a trend, right? This is not showing that this whole capex spending is coming to a halt. Actually, what you're seeing is now they're going to the debt markets to raise money to continue that spend. A lot of people think that you hear from a lot of people. I hear from a lot of people that, you know what, like this technology is you for what look, the people that are running these companies, they happen to believe that it's essential that they win. And they're the ones spending the money. I'm gonna come off a place of humility here and believe that they have a magnitude greater of understanding than all of us about what exactly is at stake here. And a lot of people, a lot of keyboard warriors, obviously think a little bit different. This is kind of neat. This is Tesla A15, their new chip, and the title here is saying that it eats NVIDIA for breakfast, and it's not untrue, right? Elon just dropped numbers that make Moore's Law look lazy. Elon is amazing here. The new A15 chip, Tesla's in-house silicon. It's produced by TSMC and Samsung on U.S. soil, right? And they're 40 times faster than the A14 running the fleet right now, right? 8 times the compute, 9 times the memory, 5 times the bandwidth. It's built by Samsung and TSMC in Texas and Arizona's, with production kicking off in 2016. Efficiency off the charts, 10 times cheaper, right? But look, Elon is looking here to power not only the Teslas, right? Also, these chips are going to be used, like there's going to be no extra XAI, and then of course, the Optimus robots will soon be here, and this is absolutely wonderful to see, and it gives you just some type of reference for the pace of innovation that's taking place. Let's get into Bitcoin a little bit, or should we talk about the markets a little bit before we do that? And we have right now NASDAQ so far holding on to gains on the day, going on change on the day. Still, we're seeing the wicks on the candles that are appearing now for potentially the fourth day. And then we look at our positioning. So we'll start with stocks, and then we'll move over to Bitcoin and crypto. And Nvidia still holding its open trade over here, currently up 10% into profit. Tesla's on the sidelines, but Tesla is now pending entering along. So Elon, look at that consolidation taking place over here, and Tesla now pending long, right? Other position FNGU continues to hold 5% into profit currently, and then Strategy's holding a short position. It's not really going anywhere right now. If Bitcoin was able to bottom today on those liquidations, those long side liquidations, the number escapes me right now. I think it was right 570. million, $500 million in liquidations. And if Bitcoin is able to bottom, I imagine this trade will begin to go against us, and it's not close to exiting at any point in time. Stop loss on there is pretty big, 6.7%. And then we move over, and obviously Bitcoin bull runs has been out of the market here as price and momentum has actually just it's rolled over. It's consolidating over here, and we've seen obviously attempts on the short side on BTC 107, no follow through, and Cardano still holding its short trade over here. So you can see between Microsoft on the strategy on the short side and Cardano on the short side compared to that tech that's long. A lot of people wondering what's going on with Bitcoin, right? And I think it's appropriate to bring the conversation back over to a couple of different places. I know that we started off with the TGA, and I don't know if you've seen, but this is alarming to me. This is measured by true inflation. Inflation running now up to 2.7%, right? BLS last reported around 3%. And this is without oil, with oil prices being subdued, I should say. But a lot of people's utilities have actually been rising because of all these data centers. Doesn't make sense to me at all. Like, why are these mega tech corporations not paying for the energy, and how and why would that be passed on to the consumers in the areas? Whether it makes sense or not, that's what's happening. When they start going nuclear to power these things, does that then get passed off to the consumers? I doubt it. It doesn't usually work that way, but either which way, that's alarming to me to be seeing inflation rising like that over here. And then I'm trying to find something because I want to talk about a lot of people's concerns with NASDAQ just off all-time high, Bitcoin lagging over here, and a lot of people wondering, are we going to see new all-time high by the end of the year? Now, seasonals definitely suggest very favorable at the end of the year. A lot of people are, remember we've always talked about the Fed cycle and that portion of the Fed cycle when QT stops, now projected to be December 1st. Whether or not they're going to make it to December 1st is a whole nother conversation. As you could see over here, you could see that the SOFR rates have been spiking up over here. And I don't know whether or not they're going to make it to December 1st, but it does seem that the end of QT is either, a month away or sooner. And not only that, but then the balance sheet is going to begin expanding upwards. There's going to be a lot of conversations about whether or not that's actually QE or not. It doesn't matter. The balance sheet will be expanding. That's what matters. I'm remembering what happened the last time that happened. And if you go back to 2019 in September, when the last time the balance sheet, they had to stop QT. Look at the initial reaction by Bitcoin, actually very favorable. Nice little spike. This is a massively different market over here today. And this is a market that was driven obviously by retail, but we'll get into that in 1 second. And then you did see, though, into the end of the year, why equity prices diverged and started really to run up and to respond very quickly and very favorably to the expansion of the balance sheet. It took Bitcoin a little bit of time, and then it started also actually its run. And again, my own personal opinion is if they didn't lock down the globe, that we never would have experienced this particular period, and that actually coming into the halving that year in 2020, the price of Bitcoin probably would have been a couple of $1,000s higher. But obviously, they did lock down the globe, and that did happen. But point being here is that we did see similar point in cycle going back to 2019. We did see, and here you can see the SOFR rate really spiking up. They're pretty close to, whether you want to call it QE or not, it's coming soon. And I call it balance sheet expansion. Powell calls it organic balance sheet expansion. And we have to watch the pace of it as it begins. Does it resemble what happened back in the fourth quarter of 2019 into the first quarter of 2020? And if it does, my expectations are it's going to be very favorable to risk. But we'll be, I guess, breaking that down as it develops in real time. Here we have Lee pointing out that the QE, QT, SOFR rate spiking, the repo stuff, that's all happening now is just back in 2019. Remember, this is how we always talked about what the Fed cycle likely would look like. And this gives them the opportunity to expand that cycle further out. Remember, like they don't want to return to outright QE, right? But eventually that is ultimately what will happen. And instead they're extending the cycle out as far as possible. Both times a rapid TGA refill was a big catalyst. So I was talking about or believe that TGA refill was a headwind onto risk, and we're seeing markets up significantly from when they started, but it has been a headwind on the overall plumbing of the markets and the liquidity of the markets, and we're losing that ample supply in the funding markets, and you could see that's what's causing them now to have to actually pivot. And that brings us back to or over to what's taking place in Bitcoin. Sorry, I was reading Deep Power's comment over there. I got stuck for 1 second. Let's take a look at what's going on over here. And this is we're looking at over the past 30 days, 405,000 Bitcoin by long-term holders being distributed into the market. Absolutely massive. 2% of the supply has been sold. Yes, price is down 15%. Price is only down 15% though. Now, true, like the reality is if this would have happened at any other time in Bitcoin's history and you were to see 2% of the supply of Bitcoin sold, not at $110,000, if it happened at 20,000, 50,000, 10,000, you would have seen Bitcoin come off something like, who knows, but 40, 50% very easily. This has been absorbed. This mass 2% of the supply sold in 30 days, and it's been absorbed by the market. That's incredibly bullish. A lot of people wondering, are we seeing some type of distribution take place? 100% this is distribution taking place. This is distribution though, and this, hold on 1 second, just the magnitude over here. Let me just switch slides over here. 2.5 billion dollars a day of sell side pressure. It's extreme, right? And it hasn't let up. And you could look back in past bull markets over here, and you could see that the long-term holder supply, you could see during those euphoric phases, you could see that's when you see them really distributing very hard during the euphoric phases. And you could say that, well, which is interesting here, that they distributed off of that massive euphoric phase in 2021 first quarter. They weren't distributing over here. I don't know what to make of that at all. That's what happened. Interesting. Here's the launch of the ETFs, and you can see the price did not come down, but there was that distribution. That could have been some corn being moved from cold storage wallets into the ETFs. And over here now, you seeing this distribution occurring without any type of euphoric move up. And you have to wonder, I wonder, is that because of the belief that Fourier cycle, like these long-term hodlers, they know the Fourier cycle. Why? Because they live through they live through 460%. Is it 4 or 5? 60% corrections. They lived through two 84% corrections and a 76% correction. And those that were back here even earlier, forget it, even more. And yeah, like that's ingrained in their psyche. And are they distributing here right now because of that Fourier cycle behavior? Potentially and possibly. That could really be happening. And I just want to really hit home over here. In the past, what you've seen is a retail driven market where retail has been able to cause that euphoric rise up. And then, of course, that exacerbates the move on the way back down. You are definitely seeing a different type of market here in so much as that why this long-term holders are distributing an enormous amount of Bitcoin in a very short amount of time. It's being actually accumulated. Like there's a reason price has not nosedived down 30, 40, 50%. It is being bought up, and it is being bought up by a different type of entity that wasn't in the market in the past. It is obviously institutional money, a lot of corporates who are in here, and they're looking to absorb that sell pressure, and they're looking to hold on to this for a long time to come. It was brought up or likened to, and I think this is great. This is Checkmate talking about this post over here. If you, I hope you had the chance to read it. Let me put it into the comments right here, right now, in case you haven't. But he likens what's taking place right now to Bitcoin IPOing. And an IPO, of course, I always talk about two of my biggest mistakes in the market, which was buying the Google IPO and the Facebook IPO and selling both of them, thinking I did well. And the truth is, I should never have sold them. But what happens at an IPO is that a lot of money is using it as a liquidity event, and people who have been holding shares while this was being built, they are now looking for an opportunity to exit. And that's why those shares are available in the public markets. You have new entrants come, and that's not retail. Retail gets to participate on the IPO, but a lot of institutional money buys IPOs, and a lot of that money holds for a long time. And it's the same thing that's happening here with Bitcoin, in so much as a lot of these long-term holders, they didn't have the opportunity to sell their Bitcoin in the past. Now that they have a favorable U.S. administration, now that they're able to go ahead and offload at above $100,000, significant coin that they've been holding for a long time, go ahead and read this article. It articulated it very well, and I think it paints a very interesting picture about a way to frame what's taking place. You could see it obviously visually over here, and the amount of supply being distributed. Distribution's taking place. A lot of people looking for that Wyckoff distribution. However, this distribution is different in so much as that it is being bought, and is being bought now here by institutional money, by the corporates, and outside of, yeah, of course, some of these treasury companies, especially the weekends, they could become forced sellers at any point in time, or at a particular point in time. But we have a new there's a reason that the market structure looks entirely different than it has in the past, and that is because there are new participants here. I think the distribution that's happening is entirely. Someone thinks that we haven't had the same market structure in the past, where you have these mega retail driven euphoric moments. Well, I mean, my 5-year-old would tell you that looks different, and it looks entirely different. But here's the thing, is that a lot of people now, like, we've been saying since Bitcoin made an all-time high prior to the halving that this is different. I've been spending with you over a year telling you that this structure is different, and that eventually everyone is. And over the last 6 months, you've seen a lot of people out there, and some really people that I respect, like Lynn Alden, come out and be like, well, it's a different structure now because there's different participants, and a lot of other people out there. And then I told you, right, through the night, you've seen Raul come out now, and he's like, oh no, now it's a 5-year cycle. It's not a 5-year cycle. Now you're going to find out, though, as we move past 2026, the first quarter, a lot more people are going to come to that realization as well. I like the fact that we get to say, no, we're not just saying now here, as we're not seeing price go euphoric in October into November for a 4-year cycle. Like, no, we've been saying this here for over a year now. So now we get to be like, and tell you, follow those with the history of getting right, what comes next. And more importantly than that, though, is, and truly is, our positioning right now is highly cautious. And I'm just trying to set the potential possibility here that when the Fed's balance sheet does begin expanding, that likely it is going to be equities led by tech that first responds very favorable to it. Remember we talk about, along the risk curve, and Bitcoin, it's not Bitcoin then tech, right? It's tech and select tech, right? The ones that are actually participating. And I wonder what this means for Nvidia going forward. You are seeing massive advancements here coming out by Tesla, right? So in the past, you saw, Elon going over and meeting with the CEO of Nvidia and then walking away with billions of dollars worth of chips. They're not going to be doing that in the future. They're making their own, right? So that, I don't know where Nvidia winds up in this story. And, but that Nvidia is not the AI race alone. Um, yeah, here's where we are. More importantly than expectations about what we see happening is our positioning. And we know that Bitcoin bull runs has us on the sideline. We know that we're not seeing. I like when we see Bitcoin, Ethereum leading, and then Cardano and Solana and all four on the long. I really like when we see Cardano and Solana leading the entries on the long side, and then pulling Bitcoin and Ethereum, because that's when really strong, favorable risk on markets are taking place. We're not seeing any of that right now, and right now calls for patience. Did you see this chart of Ethereum not looking healthy? We gotta, let's see, we gotta recover the yellow line first of all, and now we have what would be a buy impulse. Not looking healthy at all right now. It's not the time to be looking for any type of resumption up. We could have seen a little bit. Well, Beamer, I think I've tried to present this whole session of not only this session. I think I was definitely very wrong about one thing, and that was my cautious stance coming into this particular time over here. I think it was a better chart to express it. So let me try to find it, and it's gone. So throughout since the beginning of September, I thought that by the third week of September, we would be trading lower and into a correction, and October as well, post-election year. I thought it wasn't until last week when we got out the big tech earnings and that we got away the U.S. China situation, that we would then be coming out of a correction and seeing markets rise. We've we've been at all-time highs throughout all of that. And although I was very cautious coming into that period, it's not what transpired. Now, our positioning was a lot different. We walked away from that period I just talked about with taking on stocks altogether an average of a 14% gain, which is great, especially when you're bearish or cautious, I should say. And then since we continue to take in more positions, and we're now holding out of nowhere Nvidia position up after exiting 11%, FNGU 5%, and Tesla looking to enter long. And regardless of my cautious attitude coming into that unfavorable period, that's what matters is our positioning. We're sidelined on Bitcoin, just waiting on the sidelines here, attacking on the swing trading, the short side. Obviously, BTC 108 continues to hold an open position, but I don't know anyone who trades BTC 108 on the short side. BTC 107 is superior. Um, I I I guess I could say that I've been a proponent here of a really long time, because a lot of people, if you remember around the time of the halving, they were like, it's going to be a left translated cycle. And I was like, no, the high is going to come closer to the 2028 halving than 2024. Trying to help people not exit early, right? And of course, it wasn't a left translated cycle. I don't even understand why anyone would have believed it would be, but whatever, that doesn't even matter. And for the halving to be closer to the 2008 halving than the 2004, that means that the high is going to have to come sometime after the summer of 2026. And I maintain that very strongly. And not only that, I believe by the time we get into anyway, I'll just leave it there for now because I said that's as far as we'll go. So the one things that I've said in this particular area is that we're not going to, outside of an adoption event, we're not going to have a euphoric rise. And then I've said that the next adjustment from people will be like, oh, we're gonna top in the first quarter of 2026. So it's not too long away. You're talking now just 3 to 5 months away. But no, I haven't seen anything whatsoever to change my assessment of what's taking place. And actually, like things sometimes take a lot longer to transpire. I thought by now the Fed would have stopped QT and began balance sheet expansion for sure. I thought a long time ago that the repo was going to get drained a lot on a more accelerated pace than it did, and it didn't. But now we are within you could see it. We're within 30 days of actually the Fed stopping QT. Balance sheet expansion is set to rise. This extends the cycle, right? You're looking here, bull market 3 years into it, and this bull market is being driven by actual massive spending and massive cash cows. Like these companies that are leading the market, they're making an insane amount of money. Could this all come crashing down early on in the session? I tried to talk about one thing that could derail the bull run over here, and I don't think markets will crash, derail. There will be a little bit of a we'll enter into a correction for a period of time, but ultimately I'm betting on the future, and I believe that the innovation that we are taking place is entirely transformative. I don't believe that we're going to recognize the world a few years from now. You're going to begin to see actual um, the magnitude of the automation around you is going to be accelerate, and to run that, you do need these massive data centers. Anyway, Bitcoin is not close to being done in my opinion. I think that we're going to see a new all-time high, and whether or not that comes here in November, December, or shortly thereafter, I don't know. But um, you know, I imagine that it's I don't know. I don't know how to predict that or for what reason. I do know that we have extremely favorable seasonalities. I think that we've been able to overcome a great hurdle last week. And then we have obviously the monetary policy beginning to become a lot more favorable. Right now, I think that the one like thing overshadowing the bulls behind me is that Powell was able to really reset expectations in December. And Powell was able to go from what people believed was an assured 25 basis point cut coming into the market. And now it's only priced in as a 70% chance. And he did a good job, I believe, in not allowing the market to continue running away. But if that cut is coming, and right now also into that beginning of 2026, expectations of the pace of cuts have been subsided a little bit ever since Powell spoke. But I think that there's a 70% chance that that December cut is alive. Powell said that there would have to be a strong turnaround in the job market for it not to come through. And then, as we move into 2026, we're not going to be looking so much at the pace of the cuts that are projected early on in the year, but that Powell will be leaving. And what's expected to be a more favorable board will be shaping up and then further easing. And right now, the market is all over and loving that. Well, I mean, it makes sense. First of all, they're able to borrow money really cheap. Um, yeah, I don't. That's a good question. Is it a sign? Maybe looking back, it could be a sign. But and looking back, this you also saw OpenAI just signed a contract with Amazon to rent out a ton of the cloud computing NVIDIA chips. And like looking back, there were lots of signs. I think I'm reminded of in 2005, I thought that the housing market was in a bubble, and it was, but it didn't pop for 3 years later. And the amount of gains that were made since is, it's, the most money they say of a bubble is made in the last third of that bubble. I don't I've been through the alt season of 2017. I've been through the dot-com bubble. I I don't see any type of price action whatsoever that says to me that this isn't a bubble. Now it doesn't mean that, I showed you the great financial crisis. Like prices of assets at that point, you would not argue were overextended, and it doesn't mean that we can't enter into some type of like it doesn't nothing is pointing that direction to me at this particular moment. We'll do our best to show up every day and make sure that if we need to pivot, we'll be there. It's not being reflected in the price right now. Sure, Bitcoin here is, you're looking at a massive distribution taking place, but at the same time, you have to look at that the magnitude of not only that distribution, but the buying that and how subdued price pressure has been during that. That is a real sign for it. I read that as John. I read that as he's asking, like, so what are your thoughts are like? What are your thoughts on Bitcoin being done for the cycle? I think any regular viewer of CTM knows that I believe that the, you know that the bull run continues into 2026. And looking back, from my opinion, 2025 is going to be looked at like, obviously we had the liberation scare where Nasdaq corrected 30% and Bitcoin only corrected 30%. I think looking back, that's going to be realized that that was the first time that Bitcoin was able to have such a subdued correction in relation to the Nasdaq. And since it's just been running flat, and for the whole year it's been running flat, and that's a base being built up, I think. And this opens up the door for the returns in comparison from 2026 compared to 2025 to be significantly greater. There have been no returns in 2025. Now, on a 1 year rolling basis, and this is going to change very soon. I mean, coming back over here to November 1st, 2024, in the last 365 days, Bitcoin is up 55%, and Bitcoin is the best performing asset. As we move forward now over the next 2 months, that's going to change. Unless Bitcoin is able to have, a favorable November and December. Um, yeah, and if it does, then it will continue to outperform. But otherwise, as we move into 2026, Bitcoin here is going to be underperforming. But as of right now, over the last year, it's still outperforming. It's still able to. This was very trying for a lot of people. A long time of consolidation and led to that big move up. Again, I could say if Trump never decided to reorg the trade across the world, then this wouldn't have happened, but that did happen. And then, Bitcoin obviously was able to ride out of it and has been consolidating since. And of course, a lot of people would like to see Bitcoin do Bitcoin things. And for me, Bitcoin things is different. Bitcoin things to me is more of, and it's best expressed through here. And don't look at the price because the price is irrelevant. But rather than move into those bear markets lasting 1 year, mega drawdowns, we're going to see actually a walk up towards those top deviations. And that, I believe, is what's in store. Everyone, it's Monday. We're starting this week off. I hope every one of you is in a power of position, and that's in that uncertainty, knowing that you're positioned on the right side. We potentially have Nvidia getting ready to enter the market. I'm sorry, Tesla getting ready to enter the market, and I feel that our positioning here between select tech and then the Bitcoin and crypto with strategy on the crypto side here, right? It's short, and you have that nice hedge going on, that nice hedge, because strategy gets stopped out. Hopefully, that means that this tech here gets to take some profit, and until we get that beautiful moment when all of our templates between Bitcoin, crypto, and stock are all long and we're riding a big wave. The point is to keep it as smooth as possible. Yeah, but this, I don't. This is so important as we look and just try to have the perspective that we want, is as this great distribution is taking place, as this great distribution's taking place, the it's so healthy for the market that these, and some of them are early adopters, some of them, most of them are early innovators. These are the ones who took such an early risk and held for so long, and now indeed is really the equivalent of Bitcoin's IPO, and they are distributing, and you know it's being absorbed by the market. Eventually the amount of people looking to take advantage of the liquidity event is then reduced, and when that happens, Bitcoin will then be able to continue its run up. All right, y'all, let's get back to it. I'll see y'all on the inside. To everyone else, have a beautiful day. God bless you, and I'll see you all tomorrow.